Ever wonder when all the big space organizations around the globe last clammed up at the exact same moment over one stellar phenomenon? Take your time. The truth is, it hasn't happened. Not in this way. Oumuamua back in 2017 sparked a torrent of info, studies, and news blasts. 2I/Borisov in 2019, identical frenzy. But 3I/Atlas, our latest verified guest from beyond the stars. All we're left with are scraps, murmurs, and a bunch of super cautious dodges. Could be just rotten luck in the cosmos, scheduling glitches, or dull reasons. Or perhaps, and hear me out, keeping mum is the smartest move when you've spotted something you're not prepared to reveal. Stick around till the finish, cause we'll crunch the numbers on precisely how many days of this hush will push us to accept what's staring us in the face. If this enigma's got you gripped like it has me, smash that like button and subscribe to catch every fresh twist as it happens live. Leave a comment sharing your location, the local time, and your take on whether we're hearing the whole story about 3I/Atlas. And to boost this group, spread this vid on X, Facebook, Reddit, or even your private messages. You folks make it possible for us to pursue tales like this. Thanks for the support. Section 1. The emptiness screams the loudest. Imagine it, just a vague speck on a monitor. That's our sole visual. The European Space Agency snagged it amid a Mars pass. A dim streak amid the starry void, hardly standing out from the static of the universe. Meet 3I/Atlas, the third documented outsider dropping into our solar system, snapped from about 29 million kilometers off the rusty world. Not exactly a showstopper, right? More like a haze, a faint glow. Yet what sends chills down your spine? That's everything we've received in 96 hours, or possibly more, of almost complete quiet from the planet's top space outfits. Consider how swiftly news travels in our wired-up era. An asteroid zipping near Earth? Bulletins drop in hours. A supernova exploding far off? Stargazers post updates before the rays clear our skies. Today's space research engine thrives on speed, collaboration, and the rush of findings beamed to anyone online. So why, with a traveler from another stellar neighborhood cruising by, is there zero buzz? NASA stayed unusually tight-lipped past their initial alerts. China's program? Dead air. The UAE's Hope probe circling Mars? Zero mention of any scan attempts. It's like a universal gag order kicked in just as the chatter should have peaked. You could chalk it up to red tape holdups. Teams require moments to check facts, crunch models, avoid looking foolish with bogus info. Fair enough. That's science in action. But consider this. Interlopers aren't new to us. When Oumuamua barreled in during 2017, the astro world exploded into motion. Reports poured in. Findings circulated. Observatories worldwide hustled for one final peek before it slipped away. 2I/Borisov arrived in 2019, bringing quick breakdowns of its makeup guesses, and path forecasts all over headlines in mere days. The system operated as designed. Now, it rings off-key. Now the quiet has turned into a key player in the narrative. A force as real as the enigma itself. When what's missing shouts the most, you wonder, what's the void signaling? Hesitation? Bewilderment? Or deeper? Something prompting these groups to pick phrases with such precision they'd opt for silence instead. Let me anchor you here. 3I/Atlas isn't our debut cosmic drifter, yet it could prove the weightiest. Things have shifted post-Oumuamua. That era felt like kids beholding wonder anew, racing to grasp its import. Today, we're more seasoned, perhaps jaded. We've pondered the implications of extrasolar arrivals, the doors they unlock, the dilemmas they pose. And that might explain the thicker quiet now. Maybe we're hesitant to face the truths. Coming right up, we'll dissect that ESA snapshot bit by bit and uncover why it defies standard protocols. We'll probe why Mars-focused probes would pivot toward a distant speck so many kilometers out. But first, let this unease settle in. Should the hush drag on, with no fresh insights surfacing? If the organizations keep dishing out echoes of prior lines and dated sightings in the realm of uncertainties, we tend to gravitate toward the direst possibilities by instinct. This isn't a deliberate choice or the probable reality, but simply how our brains operate. They abhor emptiness and rush to populate quiet with guesses, intended or otherwise. History in space exploration reveals a recurring trend. Pauses and updates often breed gossip. Take 2011, for instance, when Comet Elenin neared our planet. A brief delay between sightings and public announcements left room for online frenzy. Theories exploded. It would trigger quakes, trail a secret probe, or yank Earth from its path. All nonsense, naturally. The comet disintegrated well before hitting its closest solar point. Yet that initial hush, the brief info drought, let rumors multiply unchecked, thriving in the absence. The takeaway? When experts stay mum, others step in to narrate for them. Thus, prior to jumping to plots or unleashing unchecked fantasies, we ought to scrutinize the clues at hand, examine that blurry speck and grasp its revelations and its limits. After all, if silence is our topic, we must first decode whatever whisper emerged from that lone snapshot. Part 2. The ESA snapshot that defies expectations. Consider the European Space Agency's Mars probes. ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter and Mars Express aren't crafted as interstellar shutterbugs. Their mission is singular, probing the red planet. The former samples the thin air for methane traces and similar vapors that could signal underground processes, be they rocky or alive. The latter charts terrain, monitors climate shifts, and scans subsurface with radar beams. These tools are precision-engineered for targeted tasks, akin to deploying a fashion shooter to catalog rock formations. They excel in their niche, but that niche is narrow. So when ESA revealed they'd snapped a photo of 3I Atlas at its nearest Mars pass on October 3, 2025, roughly 29 million kilometers out, the obvious query is, how on earth? These orbiters aren't equipped to chase dim specks hurtling through the void. Their optics tune into close-up Martian vistas, rendering the ochre landscape in sharp focus, not sifting sparse light from a far-off guest. It's comparable to peering at the lunar surface through a lab lens. You catch a glimpse, but that's no match for the gear's intent. What emerged was, charitably, lackluster. A vague smudge, lacking any obvious coma. That hazy envelope of vapor and grit encircling a comet's heart. No elongated tail fanning sunward. No sharp core, the icy rocky kernel we'd anticipate. Merely haze, mere static just edging into view. Even cautious astronomers labeled the detection tricky, pushed to the brink of visibility. One expert deemed it the edge of resolvability for such hardware. Another noted hints of a subtle coma, marred by heavy doubt. For a supposed comet like 3I Atlas, we'd anticipate hallmarks. These are grimy ice lumps, solar system fossils. Nearing a sun, their frost vaporizes straight to gas, skipping liquid, birthing the signature glow and streamer. Expect dust plumes, lopsided traits, perhaps vents ejecting chunks into the cosmos. We've documented this repeatedly with local comets. It's routine, well mapped. So why does 3I Atlas resemble a hasty sketch smeared on the detector? Legitimate accounts are simple. It's profoundly faint. It's vastly remote. The imaging duration could have fallen short. Speed-induced blur plagues shots of objects zipping at scores of thousands of km per hour. Layering shots for better clarity risks distortions, phantom shapes, or erased details. Such factors align with standard stargazing hurdles. We're straining these devices to their max, and at extremes, clarity yields to vagueness. Yet let's skirt that vagueness and glance beyond. Suppose the blur stems not from tech flaws, but inherent traits? Imagine a signal masquerading as static. To conceal an object openly, rendering it mundane works wonders. A crisp form, angular design, blatant architecture, that draws eyes. But an indistinct patch? That's shrug-off material, mirroring a weak, withdrawn comet's profile. It meshes so seamlessly with predictions that scrutiny might skip it altogether. I'm not claiming 3I Atlas it's purposely concealing things. What I'm getting at is that the information is vague enough to potentially mask details without us realizing it. Perhaps there are underlying structures buried in that haze that our present-day imaging tech simply can't discern. Or the haze might be artificial, a swarm of reflective debris encircling whatever lies hidden from view for now. Then again, it could just be what it appears to be, a distant, dim comet that we're fortunate to spot at all. The issue with relying solely on this photo is that it leaves us unable to distinguish between those possibilities. Researchers despise uncertainty. They crave precise measurements, distinct patterns, findings that lead decisively toward a single conclusion with solid backing. When evidence lingers in that foggy in-between space, open to various readings, the default response is to hold off, collect additional sightings, simulate scenarios repeatedly, and verify everything twice over prior to drawing conclusions. That could explain the hush. Perhaps NASA or other organizations are dealing with equally unclear findings, much like this ESA snapshot, and they're puzzling over its implications before going public. After all, once a viewpoint is voiced and shared widely, it's impossible to retract it. You can't reel it back in. But what really irks me is this. Even vague evidence typically sparks dialogue. Experts clash over possible meanings. They roll out rival studies. They hash things out at symposiums and online forums. The exchange is chaotic, yet out in the open. Regarding 3I/Atlas, however, even that chaotic exchange feels subdued. It's not total quiet. People are discussing it. But the intensity is dialed back sharply, as if the whole community is murmuring, wary of drawing attention. In the upcoming segment, we'll delve into what NASA may possess but hasn't disclosed or could be withholding. We'll examine the info they've shared, the hints they've dropped, and the notable voids amid them. If this ESA shot is unclear, NASA's potential holdings might offer much sharper insights. The real issue is if they're opting to share them. Part 3. NASA's hushed hallways. To give credit where due, NASA hasn't been utterly mute. They've put out resources. On their Comet 3I/Atlas media site, there's an explanatory video depicting the body's path across the solar system. Its hyperbolic path underscores that it's not tied gravitationally to our star. Hubble photos from July 21, 2025, reveal what they called a dusty envelope form, a near-round veil of grains enveloping the core. They've put forward declarations confirming no risk to our planet, noting the path's been mapped accurately, and that 3I/Atlas will traverse and depart harmlessly. They've even addressed extraterrestrial theories through a representative who noted, in essence, we stick to the facts, and right now, those facts align with a commonplace celestial body. This is routine protocol. That's how agencies operate in space exploration, updating the masses, offering comfort, delivering info in easy-to-grasp ways. Yet the timeline is where things turn intriguing. Hubble's views occurred on July 21. When did they go public? Review the announcement timestamps. Tally the days from capture to release. Now stack that against Hubble's usual rollout pace. Consider the unusual status of this visitor, the third verified interstellar arrival on record. Does the schedule align logically, or does it seem elongated, as though the standard routine included an extra delay, a breather, a chance to deliberate before announcing? Add to that the Perseverance episode on October 4, 2025. Avi Loeb, the Harvard stargazer gaining fame for entertaining unconventional ideas, shared his breakdown of a supposed Perseverance navcam shot displaying a band, a slender, stretched-out mark snapped by the vehicle's guide camera, which Loeb viewed as potentially 3I/Atlas. The setup was tricky. The craft sits on Mars, while 3I/Atlas was then dozens of millions of kilometers distant. Snagging a subtle target via Mars's gritty air using a lens meant for piloting feels improbable at minimum. Doubters countered swiftly. Layering several images to boost detection can yield stretch distortions, particularly with any lens shift or if the target drifts across the view. Timing of exposure plays a key role. Brief durations miss sufficient light particles. Extended ones cause smear, transforming a dot into a smear. The conditions clash. The capture was either too brief to pick up such a weak signal or lengthy enough that it ought to show as a blur, not a band with fairly crisp borders. The discussion turned deeply technical fast, plunging into noise filtering, light detection, and the navcam hardware's exact specs. NASA never formally endorsed or rejected Loeb's take. They held back the unprocessed files for outside review. Analysis. They avoided putting out any official word like, "We've reviewed it, and this is our take." Instead, they simply stayed out of it. That's unusual. Normally, when a leading researcher floats a bold idea based on NASA info, even one that's divisive, the organization chimes in. They could note, "We're examining this," or "Our findings don't align," or perhaps, "We lack sufficient details to weigh in." But going mute? That's not their standard playbook. So let's ponder what's possibly unfolding behind NASA's closed doors. Perhaps they're cross-checking the info with various datasets. Astronomy demands precision, and nobody risks going public with a major discovery only to walk it back after deeper scrutiny reveals flaws. There could be debates within the ranks over how forcefully to frame any tentative conclusions. Big institutions aren't uniform. Scientists, divisions, and leaders all bring their views, and hammering out agreement drags on. They might be holding back the info deliberately until that unity forms, until all parties sign off on what's safe to share. Or, venturing into murkier territory, perhaps they've spotted something awkward or explosive, and they're holding off for backup evidence before going on record. Consider the fallout from declaring a real oddity. Suppose NASA stated, "We've identified traits that defy standard comet patterns." The backlash would hit hard and fast. News outlets would go wild. Online chatter would erupt. Ufologists and skeptics alike would declare victory. And should it prove a false alarm, just noise, or a reading error, the hit to NASA's reputation would sting badly. The system rewards restraint, urging waits for ironclad proof before dropping bombshells. Yet that careful approach can mimic hiding things, particularly when folks crave updates. The boundary between sound research and calculated hush is razor thin. From afar, it's tough to spot which we're witnessing. What stands out is that NASA's messaging here seems altered, more deliberate, less forthcoming, tightly managed. Be it from doubt in the science or other factors, the truth eludes us. That fog will only thicken as we widen the lens. After all, NASA isn't solo in this interstellar saga. Next up, we'll zoom out worldwide and uncover how the quiet isn't exclusive to them. It's a trend rippling through borders, agencies, and the whole network of contemporary stargazing. When hush turns systemic, crossing countries and outfits, it raises flags. Is this synced up? Is there shared knowledge that's off limits? Section 4. The Worldwide Veil. The stars aren't turf alone. Let's get that straight from the start. The universe is communal, and plenty of countries can monitor, follow, and probe items like 3i/Atlas. China's CNSA runs an advanced setup of earthbound scopes and orbital tools. The UAE's HOPE probe, circling Mars since 2021, delivers eye-catching reads on its air layers. ESA, aside from their Red Planet satellites, taps into scattered ground observatories in Europe. Russia's Roscosmos, though less mighty than in Soviet days, holds onto tracking gear. India's ISRO is advancing in far-out surveillance. This is an international effort, and for a rare wanderer from beyond like this, you'd anticipate worldwide input. Yet what's emerging is a unified quiet. Beijing hasn't dropped any updates on 3i/Atlas sightings. Dubai's team hasn't revealed tweaks to HOPE's gear for a peek. Europe shared that blurry shot we covered, then zipped it. Moscow's crew is fixated on their rocky orbital outpost plans. Delhi's space group hasn't piped up. It's like they all concurrently deemed it unworthy of mention, which defies logic considering the research gold in probing an extrasolar guest. Let's unpack why this group hush might prevail. One angle, hardware hurdles. Not all probes or dishes are angled or geared for a dim, speedy blip billions of clicks off. The UAE's HOPE is tuned for Mars weather, not chasing distant specks. Beijing's orbital eyes may have missed prime viewing slots. Roscosmos could just be short on tools or working once to add much. These make sense as practical barriers. Another, rules from within or secrecy protocols. Certain countries shroud their space ops with heavy not transparency. Take China as an example. It's hardly famous for swiftly sharing scientific findings with the world at large. Details trickle out via government-approved routes on schedules set by bureaucracy, not just pure research eagerness. Should Chinese observatories spot something noteworthy, we could wait months or even years to learn about it, or perhaps never at all. That's just the nature of their setup. Thirdly, we're venturing into guesswork here, a unified hush. A kind of blackout among organizations, either official or tacit, where all sides hold off until specific criteria are satisfied. Perhaps once evidence hits a level of reliability, or after a key player like NASA signals it's okay to proceed, or following deliberations on foreign policy or defense issues. Space organizations do collaborate, particularly on big initiatives or breakthroughs. They exchange info under pacts that often stipulate when to go public. But history sends mixed signals. When Oumuamua streaked across our solar system in 2017, international teamwork kicked into high gear. Findings zipped between groups. Studies hit journals fast. Observatories from various countries and setups all added to the big picture. The same went for 2I Boris in 2019, swift info swaps, synced media statements without holdups, and the research world working out in the daylight, as science ought to. But with 3 Atlas, that candor has shrunk. From the outside, joint efforts look scarcer, with fewer joint declarations or references to one another's sightings. It comes off as more isolated, more closed off. Teams appear to be functioning in separate silos, and those silos aren't linking up like they once did. Intentional or merely a side effect of current events and logistics. This breeds a sense of division, of a framework that's lost some of its former smoothness. Certain news sources have flagged these voids. Pieces have run wondering why China, with its vast array of scopes, hasn't revealed intentions to probe 3I Atlas. Similar queries target the UAE, whose Mars probe is ideally placed, yet hasn't tried any scans. Fair points, yet responses stay elusive. Government spokespeople mostly zip their lips on the matter. Consider this hypothetical. There could be an unspoken pact in the global space circle. Stay mum until NASA breaks the ice. NASA holds the top spot worldwide, boasting the biggest funding, most resources, and perhaps the strongest trust factor. If NASA's tempering its take on 3 Atlas sightings, others might toe that line. Not from direct commands, but from gauging the vibe. They notice NASA's restrained style and figure. We ought to play it safe as well. Better hold off and watch developments before risking a premature statement. Yet that sparks a cycle. If all are hanging back for another to lead, nobody leads. If restraint stems from seeing restraint everywhere, it feeds on itself. The quiet endures not from plots or orchestrated cover-ups, but from a shared reluctance to be the pioneer in a daring assertion. Picture folks gathered by a chilly swimming hole, each hoping another dives in first. Is this veil of cosmic discretion turning standard? Are we stepping into a phase where space groups lean toward quiet over openness by default? Where shaping the story trumps the age-old push for candid exploration? Or might this be merely a short-lived oddity tied to this specific watch, with usual rhythms returning as details sharpen? Answers elude us for now. Instead, we face inquiries, and those inquiries grow as the hush drags on. Should this quiet linger, with no fresh insights surfacing from any corner of the globe, the darkest interpretation starts to cast a bigger shadow, not because it's probable, but because our brains cram empty spaces with dread. In the upcoming section, we'll tackle that grim outlook directly, not to back it, but to grasp why it feels mentally, if not evidentially, unavoidable when facts vanish behind bureaucratic barriers. Part 5. Framing the nightmare possibility. To spell it out, if the quiet stretches on, if groups keep stonewalling or offering empty words, the idea of alien origins turns mentally unavoidable, not verified, not even probable by evidence, but unavoidable in how our thoughts wander that way. We'll build that tale because it explains the quiet. Humans are natural spinners of yarns. Lacking hard info, we invent plots, and the plot of otherworldly guests ranks high among them. The most compelling narratives humanity has ever crafted for itself. With that in mind, let's outline a potential nightmare scenario, not as a forecast, but as an intellectual exercise. Picture 3 Atlas not as a typical comet. Envision it instead as a constructed relic, engineered by some advanced intelligence and dispatched across the stars for reasons beyond our current grasp. Suppose that observatories picked up traits, patterns, or movements that defy straightforward natural origins. Perhaps there were odd spectral readings, unusual light emissions clashing with the makeup of any familiar comet. Or slight path tweaks, minor shifts in direction unexplained by gas vents or gravitational pulls. During its trek behind the sun, in that blind spot of direct viewing, something could have altered its speed or course in defiance of comet norms. Now, envision this entity following a path that crosses Earth's orbit or vicinity. Not right away, not aggressively, but in a manner hinting at deliberation, aim, or design. The direst outcome isn't merely its presence, but that it's heading our way, beaming signals, or setting up shop. Such a revelation would dismantle our core paradigms. All our notions of humanity's cosmic role would face overhaul. Queries about solitude in the universe would find resolution, and it'd be chilling, not due to inevitable aggression from others, but from the sheer weight of the unknown. To ground this, consider past episodes in science's history. Experts have navigated bogus alerts plenty of times. Take the WOW signal from 1977, that intense focused radio burst caught by the Big Ear telescope. It briefly seemed like possible alien chatter. It vanished forever after, with no solid resolution. It lingers as a puzzle, yet no validation. Then there's Comet Allen in 2011, fueling rampant rumors. Folks predicted quakes, magnetic flips, or doomsday chaos. It fragmented before reaching closest solar approach. Turned out to be a dud. The frenzy fizzled out. The ongoing UFO/UAP revelations, rolling out piecemeal lately, provide yet another template. Officials are declassifying old videos of sky events defying simple breakdowns. They release in measured doses, easing society into accepting unexplained aerial oddities before any major drops. It's a deliberate dance to sidestep alarm while facing awkward realities. Should 3 Atlas prove irregular, a parallel strategy could be underway. Teams might be laying foundations, biding time, pondering how to disclose without sparking widespread dread or eroding trust. The catch is, declaring, "We've spotted a man-made star traveler," locks you in. No takebacks once global minds absorb it. No, never mind. Error possible. The risks demand flawless certainty prior to any word. Yet to outsiders, prudence and secrecy blend seamlessly. Folks can't distinguish prudence from suppression. Prolonged quiet only bolsters suspicions of the latter. Plots don't sprout in voids. They fill voids between expected knowledge and fed info. As those voids grow, quiet lingers, and authorities soothe sans specifics, the plots self-assemble. Let me stress, this grim outline is conjecture. It isn't the default view. It doesn't match present evidence. Still, it's a plausible extreme under today's setup. A mental space folks might drift to if hush deepens, grasping that mental path matters, as it colors every follow-up. When crowds brace for doom, they'll treat vagueness as proof. Routine red tape reads as collusion clues. Belief forges fact. Thus, we note this angle as a valid probe strand. We hold it open, not locked in, but explorable. Brushing it off entirely, shunning the thought, won't erase it. It'll just burrow, brewing into wilder, evidence-free fervor. Wiser to air it, probe it, grasp its mental pull despite lacking empirical backing. Now, we dive into specifics, the figures lost in clutter, quirks that could signal, or just buzz. Coming up, we'll examine insights from hobbyist stargazers and expert watchers as various outlets have discreetly noted, the orbital discrepancies, the spectral clues, and the murmurs echoing beyond the formal hush all point to something intriguing. While official quietude presents the outward demeanor, the underlying chatter reveals a hidden stream. Within that chatter, there could lie insights worth pursuing. Section 6. Insights hidden amid the static. The field of astronomy has long revolved around distinguishing meaningful signals from random interference. Each photon captured by our instruments conveys data, yet the voids between them, the intervals of obscurity, and the random variations that obscure the boundary between genuine findings and mere conjecture hold equal significance. Examining 3I Atlas involves more than observing a single entity. It entails scrutinizing data flows, orbital alignments, spectral indicators, and discrepancies in trajectory computations. Within those discrepancies, the subtle offsets from anticipated trajectories, certain observers discern intriguing configurations. The Minor Planet Center compiles records of observations for minor bodies. Both hobbyist stargazers and expert professionals submit their sightings, which informs simulations that refine orbital predictions with growing accuracy. For the majority of these bodies, the alignments are straightforward. Recorded positions align closely with forecasts, staying within tolerable deviation thresholds. Yet for 3I Atlas, several monitors have flagged peculiar offsets, minor non-gravitational boosts that fail to conform to conventional comet dynamics. Such anomalies might stem from observational inaccuracies, or they could arise from integrating inputs from diverse sources using varied tools. Alternatively, they may represent authentic variances implying the object's motion defies our standard assumptions. Non-gravitational influences frequently affect comets. When solar heat causes surface ices to vaporize on the illuminated face, it generates propulsion akin to a minuscule thruster. This leads comets to speed up or slow down in manners that gravitational models alone cannot foresee. Experts possess frameworks to incorporate these effects during orbital adjustments. The issue arises when the strength and orientation of these influences fail to align with the comet's solar proximity, its spin speed, or the layout of sublimating materials across its exterior. Should these alignments break down, if the influences prove excessively potent or feeble, or veer in unanticipated ways, doubts inevitably surface. In virtual communities where enthusiast astronomers convene to exchange sightings and debate processing methods, discussions have intensified around 3I Atlas displaying atypical accelerations. One contributor asserted the entity showed a velocity change mismatched by mere water ice evaporation. Another proposed the path featured recurring adjustments, as though an external factor were periodically fine-tuning its direction. Such assertions remain unconfirmed. They draw from openly accessible observation records that anyone can retrieve and interpret, though varying approaches yield contrasting outcomes based on data handling. At these fine scales, interference and true signals often intertwine. Spectroscopy adds another layer. The James Webb Space Telescope, our era's premier infrared observer, directed its focus toward 3I Atlas as it neared. Leaks surfaced not via NASA channels, but through indirect channels referencing anonymous experts, alleging JWST identified an exceptionally elevated carbon dioxide to water proportion, around 8:1, well above norms for comets. While carbon dioxide appears in many comets, such lopsided ratios imply atypical makeup, perhaps originating from an alien setting or featuring ice blends unlike those in our solar system's wanderers. Additional spectral traces have sparked talk of unforeseen emission bands, possibly tied to organic molecules clashing with routine comet profiles. Or perhaps these bands are mere static byproducts of atmospheric adjustments, or peculiarities in how the observatory's sensors handle the dim, shifting quarry. Debates intensify across journals and preliminary publication platforms. Certain specialists deem the indications substantial. Others dismiss them as instrumental glitches, common when straining gear to its observational extremes. Reality likely occupies a nuanced middle ground. Yet absent the unprocessed datasets and comprehensive evaluation protocols, external parties cannot resolve these conflicts. Consider the sorts of irregularities that might genuinely hint at engineered origins. Unconventional radiance would stand out prominently. Should 3I Atlas release illumination or warmth in patterns defying passive solar reflection or equilibrium heating from its exterior, that would provoke profound curiosity. Spectral line displacements might reveal spins or internal motions, but anomalous rhythms, like cyclical alterations implying architecture or mechanisms, merit close scrutiny. Detection of any radio waves would prove astounding. Comets do not transmit. They lack structured emissions across frequencies. Spotting any pattern broadcast from 3I Atlas would swiftly and utterly transform the discourse. So far, no such discovery has materialized. At minimum, nothing has entered the public domain. The signals we've picked up are vague probabilistic hints that could signify something significant or just random noise. That very uncertainty is what fuels the debate. While certain researchers spot potential leads deserving further investigation, others dismiss them as mere distractions. What telescopes or facilities might possess unreleased observations that could unlock this puzzle? The James Webb Space Telescope stands out as a prime contender, thanks to its ability to pick up subtle spectral signatures invisible to lesser tools. Earth-based setups, such as the Very Large Telescope in Chile or the Keck Observatory in Hawaii, might offer valuable optical and infrared insights if they've been aimed appropriately. Once the Vera C. Rubin Observatory is up and running, it'll scan vast numbers of dim targets at once, instantly highlighting any oddities. Should 3I Atlas reemerge, or if comparable phenomena surface, Rubin will spot them promptly. For the moment, though, we're piecing together scattered clues that fail to form a coherent image. Certain fragments point to a typical comet acting as expected. Others allude to peculiarities that are quirky enough to give you second thoughts. Absent a complete dataset and openness from the organizations overseeing top-tier equipment, we remain unable to reconcile the inconsistencies. So we're reduced to conjecturing, patching holes with guesswork, and pondering whether the irregularities are genuine or if we're imposing order on chaos simply because we crave patterns. In the upcoming segment, we'll circle back to the most compelling figure in this discussion, Avi Loeb, the Harvard astrophysicist renowned for treating outliers with gravity. We'll delve into his reasoning on 3I Atlas, explore how his perspectives influence the storyline, and unpack why his theory draws passionate backing alongside intense doubt. After all, in the realm of science, individual perspectives count. The way our idea is delivered often determines its impact, and Loeb is a communicator who polarizes audiences like few peers. Section 7. Revisiting the Loeb Theory. Avi Loeb isn't some outsider. Let's clarify that up front. He's a Harvard professor, past head of the astronomy division, author of countless articles in respected publications, and holder of many accolades. By standard measures, he's firmly in the establishment. Yet he's evolved into more, a focal point for controversy. Loeb's readiness to articulate what fellow stargazers ponder privately but hesitate to declare openly has positioned him as both a star and a bullseye. He embraces notions that challenge the edges of acceptable scholarly talk. This boldness has elevated him to prominence while inviting criticism. His spotlight intensified with Oumuamua. As that initial extrasolar visitor barreled into our cosmic neighborhood in 2017, the majority of experts labeled it a rock or icy body and shifted focus. Loeb scrutinized the readings and noted troubling discrepancies. The path exhibited minor boosts in speed that outgassing alone couldn't account for, especially since no such activity was evident. Its luminosity fluctuated in patterns indicating a stretched form, rotating awkwardly. The speed and route aligned with an intentional craft dispatched from afar, rather than a haphazard ejecta from a remote world. In a formal study, Loeb suggested Oumuamua could be a light sail, a delicate, mirroring membrane driven by stellar radiation or beams, a concept we've theorized but haven't engineered. The idea was methodically sound, backed by calculations, and in theory verifiable. It also sparked outrage. Reactions in academia spanned from measured curiosity to vehement rejection. Supporters lauded his innovative mindset. Detractors branded him a publicity seeker, faulted him for diluting rigorous inquiry, and charged him with lending legitimacy to fringe notions by favoring wild ideas over straightforward alternatives when simpler explanations existed. This history informs our view of his position on 3I Atlas. Loeb has spoken out forcefully on the interloper, insisting via interviews, Q&As, and announcements that we ought to probe the oddities thoughtfully instead of brushing them aside. His main assertions boil down to roughly these points. The illumination of 3I Atlas suggests either a sizable body or an exceptionally shiny exterior. The path, as he puts it, feels overly tidy, aligning too perfectly with a directed approach toward our inner orbits instead of erratic spinning. The absence or unclear presence of a surrounding haze or streamer doesn't fit standard comet patterns at that solar distance. Moreover, he floats the idea, not as fact, but as a possibility, that course corrections might have happened during the solar eclipse phase, when direct viewing was impossible. Tweaks to direction that would evade post-event detection. He further highlights the scant or non-existent non-gravitational influences. For an icy visitor of 3I Atlas's dimensions nearing the Sun, one would anticipate detectable venting impacts on the path the item ought to be losing mass to generate propulsion, manifesting as irregularities in its orbital path that stray from ideal capillary dynamics. Should those effects prove weaker than anticipated or entirely absent, it merits deeper scrutiny. Perhaps the body consists of an exceptionally resilient substance, ice is resistant to sublimation, or maybe it's devoid of ice altogether. The astronomy field's reaction to Loeb's claims regarding 3 Atlas has been, as one might expect, divided. Numerous experts insist the data remains consistent with the comet, suggesting the oddity's low emphasizes stem from particulate dynamics, measurement errors, or just the constraints of our current observations. A scientist was cited remarking along the lines of, "Bold assertions demand robust proof, and here we possess standard proof for a routine entity viewed amid challenging circumstances." Someone else noted that the void beyond our system differs from the setting where solar comets originated. Thus, we anticipate variations in makeup, atypical ice blends, and patterns that diverge from familiar models. This discussion carries an undeniable scholarly political undercurrent. Outlandish theories draw interest. They secure press, publishing contracts, and lecture slots. Yet they also invite doubt and career hazards. Erring on an unconventional idea harms one standing more severely than mistaking a commonplace one. Securing scrutiny in premier publications grows tougher for provocative ideas. Grant providers hesitate to back studies deemed fanciful or lightweight. Today's research ecosystem favors caution, interpretations that slot into proven paradigms, avoiding bold leaps. Lowe recognizes these pressures. He's penned much on the topic, contending that science has grown overly timid, prone to overlooking irregularities, wedded to groupthink. He positions his method as Galilean, harking back to eras when researchers dared question norms via empirical data. Detractors see it otherwise, as publicity hunting, eroding rigor, blurring feasibility with likelihood to confuse audiences. Still, Lowe nails a key point. Irrespective of whether his particular theories hold, peculiarities compel us to sharpen our techniques. Suppose 3 Atlas proves merely a standard comet with a quirky makeup. The effort to probe it, eliminate wild notions, strain our tools and theories to the edge. That effort elevates our practice. It teaches us comet possibilities, interstellar contrasts to our vicinity, expected markers for genuine oddities should they arise. Lowe frequently draws on educational analogies. He proposes leveraging cases like 3 Atlas to ponder detection strategies for alien tech. What traces would signal it? How to separate crafted from organic? Which sightings would confirm or debunk sentience? These qualify as sound inquiries, deserving exploration even if here the verdict is merely a comet, since the subsequent find might differ. Without prior methodological reflection, without gearing up conceptually and instrumentally, we'd overlook or brush off the real thing. The rift between Lowe and the wider scientific circle mirrors a fundamental dilemma in scientific conduct. Do we prioritize restraint, insisting on ironclad validation before eyeing unconventional accounts? Or embrace curiosity, considering atypical ideas if verifiable, leveraging them to spur data gathering and review despite slim odds? Each stance offers value. Each carries dangers. Excessive restraint risks bypassing true breakthroughs that defy predictions. Overbroad receptivity squanders effort on illusions, eroding trust in science through conjecture. 3 Atlas embodies that crossroads. It's peculiar enough for focus, ordinary enough for rejection. Lowe and similar voices nudge us toward scrutiny. Opponents tug toward disregard. Truth likely resides midway, awaiting superior evidence to emerge. Yet that evidence requires acquisition. Those sightings demand execution, and somebody must commit to observing, risks of error included. In the upcoming segment, we'll change viewpoint to examine other potential watchers of 3I Atlas. Actors outside official space programs, independent telescopes, business ventures, groups that could have spotted details yet opted for silence owing to private motives. After all, in today's landscape, monitoring the cosmos isn't the domain of a single only. Equipment is widespread these days, surveillance is extensive, and intel doesn't always travel via formal routes. Part 8. Concealed participants. The classic vision of stargazing involves a solitary researcher gazing through a scope into the darkness, jotting notes nearby. That's a relic of the past. Today's astrophysics is a massive, mechanized operation. Scopes sweep the heavens non-stop, channeling info into systems that handle countless sightings each evening. And not every one of those instruments belongs to the state. Not every bit of that info routes through authorized paths. The opening up of celestial monitoring has spawned a shadow realm of observers, and a few of them could possess details that never reached public announcements. Independent sky-watching sites have multiplied over the last few years. Affluent people, colleges, collaborative research groups. They've constructed setups that compete with official bases in power. The La Sombra Observatory runs a worldwide array of automated scopes ready for tailored scans. Planetary Resources, prior to shifting from asteroid extraction, devised methods for following minor objects using business-grade imaging tech. Hobbyists armed with CCD detectors and advanced programs often spot supernovae, asteroids, comets. The line separating experts from enthusiasts has faded, turning the divide into one based on budget rather than skill. Is it feasible that one of these non-official groups spotted 3 Atlas in a manner exposing oddities? Quite possible. A properly outfitted hobbyist using a 16-inch scope and a chilled CCD setup can pick up dimmer targets than experts could see half a century back. Groups like the International Astronomical Union's Minor Planet Center depend on contributions from amateurs for orbit tracking info. If an individual recorded something irregular, a surface oddity, an unforeseen glow, a shift from expected location, they might have submitted it officially. Or they could have held on to it privately, doubtful about the sighting, hesitant to assert anything sans verification. Whispers circulate, murmurs on digital boards that end up erased or wiped out. One person insists they snapped a trail shot of 3 Atlas displaying bifurcation, like the thing had divided or consisted of several parts. The claim draws fire. Debates flare over photo glitches versus true traits. Then the initial sharer erases it all. Someone else reports their auto all-sky rig nabbed a strange luminosity surge, an abrupt brightness jump that clashed with collision or venting predictions. That entry vanishes too. Do these represent authentic sightings that were quashed, whether by cautious spotters self-editing or admins curbing wild theories? Or are they fakes, bids for notice that got debunked and pulled in embarrassment? Without the raw files, we can't tell. And that's the issue. In this era of endless data, records can evaporate just as swiftly as they surface. Captured images offer no proof. Personal testimonies lack force-absent backup. The clutter-to-signal balance in virtual astro groups is steep, complicating the task of sifting real oddity alerts from clutter. Now, broaden the view. Orbital companies maintain hardware up there that's not designed for science, but might incidentally capture far-off celestial bodies. SpaceX manages thousands of Starlink craft. Blue Origin is crafting space-based setups. China's commercial space outfits are sending up business loads. These vehicles carry optics, detectors, comms gear. Most aim downward at the planet or sideways at rivals. Yet others feature broad-view lenses for steering, for watching space junk, for keeping tabs on surroundings. Might any of these setups have nabbed 3 Atlas? The angles would require exact matching. The target would have to cross a craft sight line during an active imaging window with settings suited for faint detections. It's a slim chance, yet not out of reach. And should it occur, should a business bird grab pics of an extrasolar visitor revealing surprises, how would the firm react? Go public with it, market it, hoard it as trade secrets, exploit it for private studies? Businesses face no mandate to disclose sky data. They handle their finds as they see fit. Beyond that, consider covert radar or LiDAR trials. Long-range radar could in principle spot and outline distant targets far beyond what visual scopes can detail. The Arecibo dish, pre its downfall, managed to ping radar waves at close-orbit rocks and generate intricate terrain charts. Compact versions persist, run by military branches, academic bodies, or operations that keep their strengths under wraps. If 3i Atlas flew near enough to our planet, a strong radar setup could capture range Doppler images revealing its form, spin, and surface details. Would info like that see the light of day? Unlikely. Many radar tools for monitoring space serve double purposes. They track orbiting satellites, space junk, and even enemy vessels. Their full potential stays under wraps due to security concerns. Spotting 3i Atlas would probably lock that data away as well. Not out of mystery about the object, but to safeguard the tech's strengths. That's just routine protocol, nothing shadowy. Yet to outsiders, it forms yet another opaque zone. A spot where key details could linger, out of reach. Satellites for telecom play a part too. They scan huge chunks of the radio bands for transmissions, disruptions, or signals that could mess with their work. Should 3i Atlas broadcast radio signals, However weakly or sporadically, one might pick it up as odd static in the backdrop. Would such findings go public? Telecom firms focus on business, not stargazing. They'd ignore or withhold it unless it hit their bottom line directly. It could just gather dust in archives, overlooked and unspoken. Looking to the past sheds light. In the Cold War era, initial photos from orbit stayed secret for years. Capturing Earth from above was groundbreaking, and nations shielded details on clarity, scope, and tech from foes. Data with civilian and defense overlaps demands careful handling. 3i Atlas isn't a warfare asset, but the observation tools might touch on delicate areas, blocking open access. This leaves us with a terrain full of potential knowledge tucked in company storages, secure vaults, hobbyist collections, or forgotten records that nobody's bothered to dig into or release. The mainstream account, from media blurbs and research articles, always falls short. It's merely the visible peak. Deeper down bubbles a network of sightings and records that never surfaces in conversations. Might certain groups hold deeper insights than what's shared? Could they hold back for the perfect reveal or profit angle? Motivations differ. A business could bide its time to drop a bombshell for promo buzz or funding pulls. A security outfit might seal it forever, stashing it out of sight. A lone enthusiast could have a game changer, but struggle for voice or trust to make waves. The setup's scattered, and that splintering breeds voids where truths stay buried. In the coming segment, we'll delve into reasons why major nations might opt for calculated quiet over full reveal. Shifting from tech odds to the world of tactics, governance, and the tricky math leaders weigh when data could upend lives or expose guarded strengths. After all, quiet isn't just doubt. Often, it's leverage. Part 9, Stellar Secrets. Time to pose the tough query straight up. What would drive officials or space outfits to hush up on 3i Atlas if they held real intel? We've skirted this for multiple sections, but now we tackle it squarely. Not to push wild theories as top bets, but to grasp why withholding makes sense amid the clues we trace. States run not just on facts, but on game plans, hazard ways, and policy angles tied to power, not honesty. Initial drive, shaping the tail and crowd response. Leaders fixate on steering info to the masses. This stems from a view, fair at times, off-base others, that raw drops without spin could spark fear or wild overreactions. Picture if 3i Atlas displayed signs of human-like design. Markets might swing wildly over guesses at our species' path ahead. Faith groups would rush to weave it into doctrines. Activist waves could rise from clashing takes, some pushing total openness now, others urging defenses against risks. Steering such turmoil gives strong reason to hold off till a polished, steered line forms. Next drive, dodging wild guesses. Even sans solid proof of oddities, just hinting that a star-crosser could be built would unleash its sparks rampant conjecture that outstrips the available proof. This pattern played out during UAP revelations. The Pentagon shared footage of unidentified sky objects it couldn't account for. Right away, discussions leaped to extraterrestrial visitors, even though authorities deliberately avoided such assertions. Regarding 3i Atlas, should agencies hint at anything out of the ordinary, rumors would surge uncontrollably, making retraction afterward extremely challenging. It's wiser to remain quiet until confidence levels allow facts to supplant guesses. Another reason involves safeguarding confidential military or intel assets. Orbital monitoring tech serves multiple purposes. It tracks near-Earth objects, yet it also monitors orbiting satellites, space junk, and possibly hostile vessels. Should 3i Atlas have been spotted by secret surveillance tools, disclosing those sightings would expose the tool's strengths, their detail, their detection thresholds. Rivals closely watch released details. They deduce system potentials from open-source intel. Shielding those assets could justify classifying observations, even if the subject proves intriguing for research. A further incentive is allowing space to validate or refute findings. Scientific processes demand patience. Cross-verification requires effort. If early data pointed to irregularities, prudent organizations would seek to scrutinize, re-examine, and confirm repeatedly prior to announcements. They'd pursue diverse, unbiased verifications. They'd eliminate glitches, equipment flaws, or faulty readings. Such procedures might span weeks or months. In the interim, Withholding comment represents the prudent, low-risk approach, despite public impatience and rampant theorizing. Yet another factor entails geopolitical and tactical maneuvering. If 3i Atlas holds real importance, as a true oddity, for instance, various countries could seek to gain positional edges before details emerge. Perhaps China aims to finish its assessments before NASA shares results, avoiding the appearance of mere response to U.S. positions. Perhaps America prefers aligning with partners first, crafting a cohesive narrative. These calculated delays stem not from plots, but from the intricate interplay of global diplomacy. Now, consider the prospect of covert funding streams. Military entities worldwide manage operations absent from official ledgers, with scant supervision, operating in ambiguous legal territories. The U.S. Defense Department has long pursued efforts to monitor celestial intruders, whether Earth origin or not. The 2017 disclosure of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program highlighted one such effort targeting atmospheric anomalies. Do parallel initiatives target distant cosmic bodies? Quite likely, though under different labels. They could nest within broader monitoring or scouting operations, but the tech is there. If a hidden program picked up notable traits in 3i Atlas, would news ever surface? It hinges on the discovery's nature and its tactical worth. If merely curious from a research angle but lacking security ties, it could eventually get cleared for release. If it carries defense implications, security risks, or exposes covert gathering techniques, it might stay sealed forever. We'd remain in the dark. When secret operations enter the picture, lack of disclosure doesn't prove nothing happened. Past examples shed light on these forces. The Galileo Project, Avi Loeb's push for transparent hunts of alien tech via rigorous science, arose in part from clashes between public research and hidden monitoring. Loeb contended that excessive cosmic watchfulness occurs in secrecy, hampering open exploration. In the Cold War era, spy satellites were so clandestine that their presence stayed under wraps for years. Valuable data they gathered, even with scientific merit, remained vaulted. 20th century UFO and UAP efforts ran with little accountability, dribbling out info irregularly, often only prodded by leaks or Freedom of Information Act demands. The trend is evident. Whenever data brushes against state security, even lightly, candor erodes. And 3i Atlas, whether a standard celestial body or not, overlaps with orbital tracking networks that undeniably tie to defense concerns. That overlap erects hurdles to disclosure. Consider a speculative case. Suppose a secret sensor, perhaps one that doesn't officially exist or whose specs remain undisclosed, picks up 3i Atlas. It reveals surprises, irregular surface traits unlike a comet's, odd glows in atypical spectra, or path shifts needing clarification. What follows? Initially, the information is marked for attention and passed up the chain. An individual judges it worthy of alerting superiors. Next, the confirmation process kicks off. Additional networks are deployed to cross-check findings using separate detectors and to rule out equipment glitches. Then, assuming the data checks out, conversations start on handling the details. Lawyers evaluate secrecy protocols. Experts in science ponder if amateur stargazers could spot the same anomaly on their own. Policymakers examine international fallout. Communications teams begin outlining possible announcements, strategizing controlled releases if required. All this unfolds over time, often spanning weeks or even months. In the interim, outward-facing groups such as NASA may get looped in, yet they're limited in their responses. They avoid mentioning restricted sightings. They steer clear of alluding to undisclosed origins. Thus, they remain silent or offer vague comforts drawn solely from open-source info. To observers, this seems like hiding facts or bungling. Internally, though, it's just routine protocol. Ultimately, various resolutions emerge. The oddity might get dismissed as a device malfunction or ordinary event, keeping the details locked away since disclosure serves no purpose. Alternatively, if the irregularity endures and builds credibility, choices arise regarding phased revelations. Here, details trickle out methodically, shaped with care, aligned between departments, and perhaps borders. The audience receives an honest yet partial narrative, crafted to educate while safeguarding key assets. Is this unfolding with 3-2 Atlas? There's zero proof it is, yet equally no proof against it. The setup for such a chain of events is in place. Historical patterns support it. Motivations align. If these factors have merged here is guesswork, but grounded guesswork rooted in real governmental mechanics, not wild delusions. Opposing views deserve consideration. Demands for openness are genuine. In open societies, authorities endure scrutiny, exposures, insiders who spill, reporters unearthing hidden tales. Academic review imposes its own calls for candor. Should NASA researchers hold vital insights, plenty would push to disseminate them to peers, defying bureaucratic wishes. Breaches occur. The Pentagon Papers surfaced. Snowden exposed secrets. Hidden cosmic initiatives have come to light via whistleblowing and deep dives by the press. Absolute lockdown rarely endures forever. Thus, if truly noteworthy data is being withheld by officials, the hush won't hold out eternally. Sooner or later, voices emerge, secrets slip, findings go public. The key issue is the duration of quiet before the dam breaks and the interim impact on the knowledge. In the upcoming segment, we'll pivot sharply. From mystery to hypothesis, we'll probe if 3 Atlas represents extraterrestrial tech and how its muteness itself hints at its form, goals, and limits. We'll dive into imaginative science, probing how a craft's reticence could illuminate its creators and aims. After all, the lack of transmission can be the message. Part 10. Imaginative science behind the quiet. Time for a mental exercise. For the coming moments, suppose 3 Atlas isn't a comet. Picture it as a relic, a scout dispatched by minds from distant stars. Now, ponder what its own reticence reveals. Not official hush, but the item's inherent stillness. Why craft a star-spanning explorer or watcher to stay mute, broadcasting nothing, ignoring outreach bids, showing up merely as a dim, hazy smudge in scopes? One explanation: concealment. To survey undetected, you'd suppress all traceable traces. Skip radio waves, as they'd broadcast your arrival far and wide. Avoid excess warmth, since infrared picks up heat. Shun shiny exteriors or mirrors that snag starlight and invite notice. Aim for low profile, mimicking cosmic debris closely. A covert device would sport a matte, light-swallowing shell, perhaps cloaked in fabrics that soak up rays instead of bouncing them. It could employ subtle heat dispersal, venting slowly toward blind spots from potential watchers. Such engineering fits if the intent is pure reconnaissance minus meddling. Perhaps its builders seek to analyze societies untouched, avoiding the skew of interaction in their data. Humans mirror this in nature studies. We deploy motion cams, distant monitors, methods allowing animal surveillance sans their awareness of our gaze. A device functioning on similar principles could remain undetected, quietly collecting information and relaying it via undetectable pathways. Another possibility involves saving resources. Journeys across the stars demand vast amounts of power. Even propelling a modest payload to a substantial portion of light speed demands immense resources. Such a device might lack sufficient fuel or energy production to broadcast actively, particularly if designed for operations spanning hundreds or thousands of years. Rather, it could focus on unobtrusive monitoring, archiving details until linking up with another unit or a central vessel, or just logging data internally without prompt sharing. Drawing power passively aligns perfectly here. The device could capture sunlight via highly effective photovoltaic arrays, snag particles from the space between stars, or tap into the gradual breakdown of internal radioactive elements for a reliable but modest energy flow. These approaches yield constrained power supplies, adequate for core operations, yet insufficient for intense broadcasts. The device remains mute out of necessity, managing a tight energy allowance where each bit counts, and every task prioritizes thrift over outreach. A further explanation lies in AI-guided independence tied to defined objectives. Picture the device as smart, outfitted with machine intelligence able to decide actions, yet bound by code that shapes its conduct. Its directives could be straightforward: monitor without engaging. Gather intel on star systems or advanced societies if spotted, but keep apart. Share observations solely in set scenarios, or skip sharing entirely for a records-only assignment. An AI unit lacks inquisitiveness or urges, it adheres to its code. If silence is mandated, it complies. This ties into ideas from CTI and the Fermi paradox. The zoo idea proposes that alien societies might intentionally steer clear of us, viewing Earth like a wildlife sanctuary, observing without meddling. A device built for zoo-like rules would emphasize watching without interaction, accounting for both its existence and quiet demeanor. The lurker concept links closely. Such devices could be placed galaxy-wide, inactive until certain cues arise. The cue might be a society's tech advancement, reaching milestones in abilities, or perhaps a message we need to broadcast. Before that threshold, the lurker stays dormant. Advanced encoding or quantum methods provide yet another rationale. If the device signals but employs techniques beyond our detection tools, its messages evade us. Quantum linking might enable instant exchanges sans traditional spacebound waves. Precision-targeted, low-energy laser paths could beam data in tight streams we'd miss unless perfectly aligned. Broad-spectrum modulation might scatter signals so widely they resemble static without the right deciphering tool. Our radio and TV emissions spill outward, leaving traces for any attuned listener, but such wastefulness mirrors yelling instead of murmuring. A sophisticated society would favor targeted delivery, directing info exactly without squandering power on empty broadcasts. To us, this appears as no noise at all. The device could be talkative, merely inaudible to our ears. Resource limits highlight why quietude proves the smartest approach. Deep space chills near absolute zero. Any running gear produces excess warmth, and venting it without giveaway glows poses difficulties. The device might deploy heat sinks aimed clear of potential watchers, dumping thermal into the cosmic background radiation. It could run at minimal output, handling info gradually, with extended downtimes between bursts to curb heat, cut outflows, and erase detectable traces. This boosts both concealment and practicality at once. Does this account for the dim smudge we observe? Perhaps the smudge is intentional, a subtle reflector mimicking a comet's glow while masking the true form undercoatings of grit or frost gathered en route. Or the blur might stem from a particle veil the device deploys for cover, a debris shield thwarting sharp views. We're seeing the disguise, not the core. These notions remain conjectural, yet they rest on solid science, not whimsy. We can craft devices that curb outputs. We understand this well. Discussions on stealth capabilities, quiet monitoring, and power limitations in space. Applying these concepts to scenarios across the stars makes sense. It's a method to ponder feasible options based on established physical laws. This approach doesn't confirm that 3I Atlas is artificial. Instead, it sketches out potential signatures of engineered objects, guiding us on where to direct our searches. Such conjecture has value. It refines our methods of detection. For instance, if we suspect a probe could employ quantum signaling, we prioritize building quantum sensors. If it might emit excess thermal energy in targeted patterns, we deploy telescopes to capture those signatures. If concealment beneath cosmic debris is possible, we innovate tools like radar or alternative spectra to peer through it. Even supposing 3I Atlas turns out to be merely a comet, exploring these possibilities equips us for genuine encounters down the line. At this point, let's pivot from 3I Atlas temporarily. We'll explore the broader landscape of 2025 scientific developments, examining additional oddities, quiet zones, and cosmic hints that challenge our interpretations. After all, 3I Atlas doesn't stand alone. It's woven into a tapestry of enigmas, breakthroughs, and inquiries shaping today's scientific era. Grasping this backdrop allows us to view 3I Atlas with sharper focus, understanding its role in the grander narrative of our expanding awareness of the universe. Part 11. Solar Megastorms and Concealed Dangers. In May and June of 2025, the Sun asserted its dominance with a stark warning. Enormous blasts of plasma and magnetic flux from its corona collided with Earth's protective field, unleashing widespread geomagnetic warnings. Northern lights shimmered unusually far toward the equator. Operators of orbiting craft rushed to safeguard their equipment. Those overseeing electrical networks stayed on high alert, prepared to activate crisis measures should conditions deteriorate. Over several days, the peril felt tangible, not world-ending, but substantial enough to matter. This sort of incident could cripple comms satellites, scramble navigation systems, fry key components in energy networks, and leave vast areas without light for weeks or even months. Such solar outbursts are anything but discrete. The star hurls countless tons of ionized matter outward at velocities nearing 1,000,000 kilometers per hour, including effects on extended conductors like transmission cables and conduits. The infamous Carrington episode of 1859 remains the fiercest recorded solar flare, sparking electric surges that ignited telegraph lines. Were something comparable to strike now, amid our intricate and fragile setups, the economic toll might soar into the trillions, impacting countless lives. Yet this ties directly into our broader tale. Hazards from space vary in scale, and officials approach them with caution. Solar behavior follows certain rhythms, while defying prediction in others. We track these ejections as they depart the sun and estimate arrival times at our planet, though gauging their strength or precise field alignment, which dictates the extent of harm, often eludes us. Even amid these unknowns, atmospheric space agencies release notifications, cautions, and projections. They share updates because the risks are familiar, the underlying science is solid, and mitigation steps are well-defined. Compare this to 3I Atlas, an enigmatic visitor whose traits we can't fully decode, displaying actions that may or may not stand out, traversing our system's core without obvious peril but loaded with uncertainty. How do experts manage such a case? With restraint, meaning they hold back on statements until clarity emerges. They avoid stirring public unease over what could prove insignificant. They steer clear of fueling hysteria or wild theories absent solid proof of risk or import. Thus, they opt for quiet or vague assurances that reveal little depth. This reflects a recurring dynamic. Familiar dangers prompt dialogue. Vague or unclear ones breed reticence. It's a calculated way to handle uncertainties. Addressing a solar ejection feels secure since its natural, fleeting, and containable essence is widely grasped. Venturing into discourse on a possible interstellar interloper with quirky traits invites queries that organizations aren't ready to field. What if it's engineered? What if its path alters? What if others follow? Safer to remain mum than ignite such debates too soon. Emerging studies on space weather prediction in 2025 are boosting our grasp of scale and countermeasures. AI-driven systems, fed with years of sun-watching archives, now project ejection potency with greater reliability. Networks of probes keep constant vigil on the solar sphere from varied perspectives, yielding 3D insights into how outbound matter morphs en route to us. These strides afford extended heads-up periods, refined outlooks, and stronger defenses for vital systems. And all this knowledge flows freely, detailed in scholarly papers, debated at symposia, and woven into everyday alert mechanisms. Systems. What accounts for the disparity? Solar activity is something familiar, a hazard we've tamed via knowledge. 3 Atlas embodies the unfamiliar, the untamed realm, the realm of phenomena we haven't yet figured out how to control. People, scientists, and officials alike react to the unfamiliar in ways distinct from the familiar. The unfamiliar gets isolated, held at a distance, examined with care prior to entering mainstream discussions. The universe buzzes with activity. We're constantly hit by various signals. Emissions from far-off galaxies in radio form, particles from exploding stars known as neutrinos, ripples from merging black holes via gravity waves, the faint echo of ancient cosmic radiation. We tune out most of this buzz since it's predictable, aligning with our theories. Yet when an anomaly appears, when a transmission disrupts our established views, the buzz shifts into something overwhelming. It's the clamor of theories, rival explanations, doubt that defies easy answers. At times, the way to handle such clamor is to hush the debate until facts solidify. 3 Atlas forms a single tone within that vast universal harmony. Solar flares represent yet another. In the upcoming section, we'll explore murmurs of dark matter, yet another peculiarity in the cosmos existing in the gray area between spotting and verifying, where science tests the edges of observation and comprehension. After all, the cosmos overflows with entities we can't view outright, detectable solely via their influences, and dark matter stands as the most substantial unseen force. Part 12. Dark matter hints emerge. Buried far below the surface, protected from cosmic particles by thick layers of Earth, sensors lie in wait amid the blackness. These devices, chilled to near absolute zero conditions, remain vigilant for potential visitors that may never show. They're on the prowl for dark matter, the unseen material comprising 85% of the universe's mass, though it has evaded direct capture. Its presence is inferred through gravity's pull. Galaxies spin at speeds too high for their observable contents. Clusters of galaxies cling together without sufficient stellar or gaseous mass. The curving of light through gravitational lensing demands extra heft beyond what's visible. There's clearly something present, bearing weight, yet neither emitting nor capturing light. We label it dark matter, merely a stand-in for what we don't grasp. By 2025, faint suggestions have surfaced from these subterranean labs. No verified finds, no results ready for journals, but oddities, groupings of incidents that stray from anticipated baselines. An experiment in Italy, perhaps the Eiston collaboration or a follow-up effort, noted a surplus of occurrences within a particular energy window. The surplus was modest, scarcely reaching statistical relevance, the sort potentially chalked up to impurities, adjustments, shifts, or sheer chance. Still, it lingered, appearing in several datasets, sufficient to draw scientists' focus without sparking wild enthusiasm. If dark matter bits truly exist, they'd slice through normal substances with minimal interference. Infrequently, perhaps every couple of months in a metric ton of sensing gear, one might bump into an atom's core, yielding a subtle glow or a slight energy burst. That's the precise rarity these deep labs aim to snag. Those ultra-subtle interactions, pulses so weak they scarcely pierce the static. Separating a genuine dark matter pulse from ambient interference demands seasons of accumulation, meticulous tuning, and cross-verified proofs from varied sources. The 2025 murmurs fall short of proof. They resemble intriguing clues, prospects requiring extended observation, expanded records, and rigorous vetting before declaring a breakthrough. Yet they hold weight. They're the sort of irregularity that prompts researchers to inspect their setups, scrutinize records anew, and ponder if this marks the initial subtle trace of authenticity. For everyday listeners, picture straining to catch a soft murmur amid a packed arena's roar. That murmur embodies dark matter. The roar comes from stray radiation, incoming cosmic particles, natural decays in the equipment, and all manner of energy sources generating false alerts. To capture the murmur, you must suppress the roar as much as feasible. Descend deep to fend off cosmic particles. Employ supremely clean substances to curb decay risks. Chill the setup to curb heat-induced fuzz. Operate the sensor over years, gathering evidence, biding time until the numbers sharpen sufficiently for any true pulse to surface from the haze. Link this back to 3 Atlas. Each tale revolves around pulses concealed in static, peculiarities that could signify import or mere flukes. The challenge of telling substance from illusion at detection's frontier. Dark matter pursuits are engineered with such hurdles in view. They incorporate backups, multiple verification techniques, rigorous statistical benchmarks prior to declaring a find. The approach is methodical, cautious, and unhurried. Yet astronomy often lacks such leeway. 3 Atlas traversed the inner solar system according to a timetable beyond our influence. We had a single shot, perhaps several weeks for prime viewing, before it vanished. The information we gathered represents our sole resource, barring an improbable return due to its hyperbolic path. Thus, the proof threshold varies. Delaying for years isn't feasible. We must utilize available material, analyze it optimally, recognize ambiguities, yet still reach judgments. This leads to disparities in discovery proclamations. Dark matter studies can bide their time to declare, "We've spotted something intriguing," though we're holding off on labeling it a detection. Skywatchers tracking fleeting phenomena lack that option. Still, they endure strong demands to avoid exaggeration, to refrain from proclaiming sensational results that might crumble later. Consequently, they adopt a cautious stance, disclosing minimal details while awaiting agreement that may never materialize since the entity has already departed. The parallel is remarkable. Our cosmos brims with indications. Numerous concealed, Many unclear, plenty submerged in interference demanding advanced methods and steadfast scrutiny to uncover. 3 Atlas could stand as a blatant outlier, an extraterrestrial interloper that ought to yield straightforward, indisputable evidence. Yet suppose it doesn't? Suppose it's merely another faint murmur amid the arena's din, and we're struggling to discern it amid the surrounding clamor? A deeper philosophical inquiry emerges. How often do we overlook irregularities because they clash with the established narrative? Dark matter lingered as an irregularity for years before gaining traction. Fritz Zwicky introduced it in the 1930s, drawing from galaxy cluster observations. He termed the unseen mass, done later, dark matter. The research community mostly overlooked him. Only in the 1970s, with Vera Rubin's rotation curve data rendering the argument irrefutable, did dark matter enter the mainstream. Years of irregularities brushed aside or rationalized until the evidence amassed beyond dismissal. Might 3 Atlas trace a comparable course? An irregularity presently downplayed or overlooked, but one that subsequent scans or reevaluations will uncover as pivotal. Or conversely, an irregularity that appears compelling today, only to dissolve as knowledge advances. Will lack certainty for years, perhaps generations. The dark matter saga illustrates the need for endurance at times, that not all irregularities clarify swiftly, and certain enigmas span lifetimes to unravel. But the dark matter saga also highlights science's social dynamics, how irregularities threatening prevailing paradigms encounter doubt until evasion proves impossible. Zwicky proved correct, yet contemporaries viewed him as quirky, disregarding his concepts in his era. Rubin confronted gender prejudice alongside scholarly doubt. The journey from irregularity to established truth is uneven. It's rough, contentious, swayed by elements unrelated to the evidence. 3 Atlas navigates that social terrain. Assertions regarding its irregular traits pass through identical mechanisms that sifted dark matter assertions. Who advances the assertion? Their standing? Its alignment with current models? The career and institutional hazards of embracing it? Such inquiries mold anomaly reception irrespective of true merit. In the upcoming segment, we'll introduce a fresh element: artificial intelligence. AI is revolutionizing astronomical data handling, anomaly detection, and choices on what merits expert review versus discard. This shift carries deep ramifications for tales like 3 Atlas, as AI increasingly serves as the initial observer of fresh data, the primary sieve determining elevation or rejection. That adds fresh intricacies to the interplay of quiet and cues. Part 13. AI's function in the stellar vigil. The cosmos produces data volumes exceeding human capacity. Nightly, global observatories snag millions of photos. Each moment, radio arrays log gigabytes of emissions. Spectrometers yield thousands of readings. The sheer scale overwhelms, surpassing what astronomers can scrutinize personally. Hence, we've developed Sentinels, AI frameworks that manage this deluge, highlight the noteworthy, and cull the mundane. These tools form core architecture, the initial scrutiny layer from unprocessed inputs to expert gaze. China's 500-meter aperture spherical telescope FAST, the planet's biggest single-dish radio array, features enhanced AI conduits tailored for anomaly pursuit. The setup examines arriving radio emissions in at the same time. These tools cross-check incoming data in real time with profiles from established origins, highlighting discrepancies. They're scanning for fleeting events, sudden spikes, or configurations that could suggest artificial origins. Comparable setups are rolling out at additional sites. Soon, the Vera Rubin Observatory will leverage machine learning to sift through its enormous survey outputs, swiftly spotting supernovae, asteroids, fluctuating stars, or any shifts and surprises that pop up. NASA has woven AI into various data processing streams. The James Webb Space Telescope employs machine learning to refine its observation schedules, figuring out optimal targets and timings while juggling research goals with practical limits. Earth-based observation programs rely on neural networks calibrated to separate asteroids from stars, genuine entities from glitches, compelling transients from mundane static. The AI doesn't deliver ultimate verdicts. Instead, it trims the scope, guiding experts toward the slim slice of information deserving close scrutiny. This approach is streamlined and essential. Absent such sieves, we'd be overwhelmed by information overload, overlooking key breakthroughs amid the clutter. Yet it brings a fresh vulnerability. Suppose the AI overlooks a vital element? What if its learning dataset lacked samples of some emerging oddity, leading it to wrongly label it as trivial? What if a genuinely bizarre signal, the sort we ought to prioritize, gets marked as a fault and quietly removed? Machine learning models draw from precedents. You feed them countless asteroid photos, instruct them on asteroid traits, and they master identification. But they also absorb what asteroids aren't. Consequently, they'll often dismiss deviations from their learned norms as interference or flaws. If 3i Atlas displayed traits diverging from every comet in its training archive, an AI might tag it as dubious or brush it off as tainted input. The result hinges on the precise training methods, its certainty cutoffs, and its approach to outliers. Picture this hypothetical case. Envision an AI sifting orbital images from Mars probes during 3i Atlas's initial nearness. It detects a dim shape, attempts categorization, but it poorly aligns with familiar types. It rates it low on reliability, labels it a likely glitch, and shunts it to a back burner list. When a person finally reviews it, months have elapsed, the viewing period has ended, and the entity has vanished. The AI wasn't scheming to hide it. It simply adhered to its code and ingrained preferences for signal versus static. Still, the impact mirrors intentional concealment. Crucial intel that merited spotlighting ends up interred. Or flip the script. The AI deems 3i Atlas exceptionally odd, boosts its status, and fast-tracks it to reviewers. The experts examine it, confront the same unclear readings we've explored, conclude the AI got carried away, reduce its ranking, archive it, and pivot to what they deem more pressing. In this instance, the AI performed aptly, yet the human layer stifled the alert. The breakdown stems not from AI shortcomings, but from overly cautious human evaluation. Such examples underscore focus issues. Should we rely on AI-driven workflows over manual inspections? Both carry pitfalls. People bring prejudices, finite focus, and a habit of perceiving expected patterns. AI contends with dataset constraints, struggles to extrapolate past its inputs, and lacks intuitive reasoning for unprecedented scenarios. The best path blends them synergistically. AI for scale and velocity, people for insight and discernment. Achieving that demands seamless interplay between the components. But the exchange isn't flawless. There's yet another layer. AI as a sentinel, controlling access to what's shared publicly. If an AI marks an item as profoundly irregular, yet the irregularity remains vague or ripe for hype, those overseeing the AI must choose. Do they disclose it right away, sparking widespread curiosity and analysis, or probe it discreetly first, confirm details before going public, and shape the story? The AI has fulfilled its role by raising the flag, but people dictate the next move. Moving forward, this tension will sharpen as AI grows more advanced, managing greater portions of the data flow independently. The human function will evolve from hands-on watching to supervision, then to watching the watchers. In that era, quietness may no longer trace to people. It could emerge from code, a byproduct of system architecture and education rather than deliberate decisions by researchers or leaders. And that raises fresh questions of responsibility. If an AI overlooks or buries something crucial, who bears the blame? The coders who built it, the organizations that launched it, the data used to shape it, data inputs that influenced its operations. During its observational phase, 3.2 Atlas underwent a period of flux. Certain data handling was streamlined through automation, while other aspects remained hands-on. Advanced setups featured cutting-edge AI workflows, whereas more basic ones stuck to conventional approaches. Such variability leads to inconsistencies, areas where details could escape notice or become distorted during transfers across platforms. This isn't due to any particular oversight. It's simply the chaotic truth of evolving systems. Legacy techniques mingling with emerging ones, each imperfect in its own way, contributing distinct types of inaccuracies. Moving forward, we'll pivot from the detection mechanisms to the essence of those signals. In particular, we'll delve into quantum messaging, a technological advancement that could account for why some transmissions evade our notice. Perhaps the quiet isn't in the content being conveyed, but in the methods and mediums employed, forms we lack the tools to comprehend. Possibly 3.2 Atlas is broadcasting urgently, yet we're tuned to the incorrect wavelengths. Part 14. The Quantum Messaging Advance. In 2025, innovations in quantum messaging garnered little public attention. Orbital tests with linked photons shattered range barriers, proving that secure quantum codes could span continents with virtually flawless protection. Terrestrial hubs in China and Europe forged unbreakable quantum connections, impervious to standard interception attempts. The innovation transitioned from experimental proofs to real-world applications, marking a subtle shift in data conveyance paradigms. For newcomers, quantum messaging leverages the traits of paired particles. Entangled photons, once one is observed, instantaneously alter the other's condition, no matter the separation. This doesn't breach light speed limits or relativity principles. A standard pathway is still required to finalize the exchange, yet it yields inherently tamper-proof interactions that appear invisible to outsiders. Snagging an entangled photon flow inevitably disrupts it, alerting the authorized users right away. Consider extending this to deep space dialogues. Picture a far superior society, proficient in vast-scale quantum linking. They might create undetectable links between scouts and their origins, accessible solely to network insiders. Through our radio or visual scopes, we perceive emptiness. Zero emissions, no data flows, no hints of interaction. The device and its overseers could swap enormous data volumes non-stop, leaving us utterly unaware. This draws from solid physics principles, though scaling to cosmic spans challenges our engineering. Should a unit like 3.2 Atlas employ quantum messaging, detection would demand stumbling upon and analyzing a linked photon. And even so, deciphering would require the specific coding protocol. From our vantage, the pathway stays mute, not from absence of dialogue, but from mismatched observation tools. Precision-guided, low-intensity laser beams provide another concealment tactic. Rather than omnidirectional radio broadcasts, our initial straightforward choice, a sophisticated group would deploy focused laser streams aimed precisely at recipients. These rays could span mere microradians or nanoradians, lighting just a minuscule zone. Absent precise alignment during monitoring, or if the sweep bypasses Earth, it slips past unnoticed. The appeal of such setups lies in their efficiency. Spherical radio dispersal squanders most output into the void. A directed laser, by contrast, channels almost full potency to the destination, slashing energy needs sharply. For an energy-constrained explorer, this thriftiness could prove essential. Thus, the unit stays linked perpetually, but solely toward unviewable angles. Rays that evade us or arrive too weakly, blending into ambient static. Techniques like spread spectrum modulation, adapted from defense channels, furnish additional evasion strategies. The payload gets scattered over a vast bandwidth, so sparsely that each slice mimics static. Reconstruction demands the dispersal code, the sequence guiding reassembly. Lacking it, even elite detectors register mere chaos, akin to heat jitter or stellar emissions. The quest for alien minds, known as SETI, has historically researchers have traditionally hunted for narrowband signals, those that scream artificial origins since they're far too precise for any natural phenomenon to create. Yet, if extraterrestrial messages employ spread spectrum techniques, we'd overlook them entirely. They could be swirling about us right now, but we'd dismiss them as mere static without the right decryption key. It's akin to deciphering an unfamiliar tongue, pure gibberish until you grasp its rules and lexicon. Our own radio and TV signals seep into the cosmos haphazardly, a side effect of our tech's early stages. Things are improving, though, with shifts to fiber optics and targeted antennas that shrink our EM signature. A more evolved society would have crossed that bridge ages ago. No leaks from them. Instead, they'd transmit with pinpoint accuracy, thriftiness, and stealth against intruders. To them, wide-open broadcasts would feel like yelling private matters in a packed auditorium, wasteful and risky if unfriendly ears are tuned in. Thus, our hunts for signs from 3 Atlas rely on our own strategies and preconceptions of signaling. We scan for radio waves, laser pulses, or whatever fits our detection toolkit. But should the entity be using comms that outstrip our gadgets, we might be smack in the middle of a chat without a clue. The quiet we sense isn't a void in messaging. It's our gear and mindset bouncing limitations right back. This carries deep weight for decoding the hush surrounding 3i Atlas. Officials aren't hiding secrets. They could just lack findings because their gear misses the mark. The thing might be pulsing out a steady signal, a lighthouse for those equipped to see it, but we're unequipped so far. Picture a Victorian-era person fumbling to catch a TV show. The waves saturate the ether, yet sans the proper decoder, it's invisible. There's a sobering insight here on knowledge's boundaries. We often presume that with enough grit, we'll spot anything real. But that only works if the target plays along with our scanners, manifesting in ways we anticipate. Think quantum links, beamed lasers, or diffused spectrum codes. These aren't sci-fi dreams. They're polished versions of our current tools, honed by societies with greater experience and means. Such advances could sideline classic SETI tactics, chasing echoes of signals that sophisticated folks ditched long back. On the other hand, it toughens the quest, perhaps to the point of futility. If their tech evades our probes, how do we ever pinpoint them? Maybe we won't, not before we invent those tools ourselves, or until they opt to show up using our lingo, simplifying their output for primitive watchers. Whether 3i Atlas signals such an intentional reveal is still up for debate. In our closing segment, we'll flip the view completely. We'll probe our own reticence, the calls we make on revealing, concealing, highlighting, or muting info. Because in the end, the quiet encircling 3 Atlas could stem more from our psyche, our setups, our grip on the enigmatic, than the artifact itself. Grasping that personal layer is key to the full tale. Part 15. The bigger lesson, our collective hush. We've orbited this puzzle across 15 segments, dissecting it from all sides. The entity, the data, the outfits, the innovations, the what-ifs. Yet the core query might sidestep 3 Atlas altogether. It could be self-directed. Why do we stay mum? Not just particular groups or folks, but us as a culture, as a kind, grappling with our cosmic niche in a universe wilder and naughtier than forebears dreamed. The stillness veiling 3 Atlas might be our invention, not the things. The artifact stands as is, be it icy wanderer, scout craft, or hybrid mystery. It reveals only what its build or laws of nature dictate. We, however, decide the watching, the analysis, the sharing of discoveries. And those picks get molded by unrelated forces. Bureaucratic squeezes, budget woes, job risks, dread of mockery, worry over uproar, tactical bets favoring grip over candor. Let's tackle the moral dilemmas up front. What ought researchers share or stash? The classic reply, all of it, bar checks from peers and proofs. Progress in science thrives on candor, via the push for openly sharing research data and techniques, so researchers worldwide can verify, critique, and build upon it. Clashes with hard-nosed constraints. Certain breakthroughs carry risks to national defense. Premature releases of results might spark widespread misunderstanding or alarm among the populace. Meanwhile, some datasets remain confidential, derived from specialized equipment or approaches that provide a key edge over rivals. Reconciling this clash between transparency and opposing forces proves challenging. Who determines if an unusual observation poses no threat for public unveiling? In open democracies, in principle, citizens influence this via their chosen officials who guide research bodies. Yet in reality, choices fall to non-elected officials, affiliated experts, and grant providers dictating agendas. Ordinary people only encounter what navigates these barriers, endures scrutiny protocols, and qualifies as fit for broad audiences. This setup isn't inherently malicious. It's simply how intricate civilizations operate. Still, it fosters a gap between initial findings and their revelation. Within that gap, details may get molded, postponed, or overlooked. National defense worries, potential for societal alarm, and resource constraints profoundly mold what gets shared. An aerospace organization pondering the release of an odd detection must simulate potential fallout. Might lawmakers boost allocations for deeper probes into the oddity, or slash support viewing the group as shaky? Could citizens respond thoughtfully, or would wild speculations and fear overshadow everything? Might allies contribute additional insights, or pull back and clam up? Such dilemmas yield tangible outcomes impacting jobs and organizations, steering actions toward hesitation or halt in sharing, even absent deliberate censorship. Consider parallel debates from 2025. In the field of genomics, heated discussions swirled around the timing and manner of disclosing insights on inherited illness vulnerabilities. Unveiling too soon, prior to viable treatments, breeds worry sans remedies. Delaying excessively means those who might gain from prompt tests lose out. In machine learning, specialists wrestled over publicizing specific computational breakthroughs ripe for militarization or monitoring. Climate research grappled with conveying forecasts without downplaying dangers or overwhelming folks with despair. These dilemmas lack straightforward resolutions. They're subjective assessments where sensible minds diverge. The 3-atlas scenario fits right in. Suppose detections point to a true outlier, perhaps hinting at extraterrestrial origins. Then post-validation and global input. Should it go public right away to invite worldwide follow-up monitoring? Each option has merits, and a misstep carries weighty repercussions. Stress that holdups often stem from systemic factors, not malice. Vast organizations proceed at a measured clip. Information requires sifting, examination, and vetting by various stakeholders prior to dissemination. This drags on, particularly for intricate or atypical results defying routine formats. What outsiders perceive as concealment could merely reflect standard operational rhythms, exacerbated by the finding's unprecedented qualities. Administrative systems prioritize accuracy over haste, error reduction, and risk mitigation for the entity. These priorities undermine swift openness. Returning to 3-atlas, presuming quietude signals deceit invites a vicious cycle. Prolonged reticence from authorities heightens doubts about their motives, fueling beliefs in concealment. That mindset taints whatever follows. Should entities eventually disclose records proving 3-atlas merely a comet, doubters will decry manipulation, cherry-picked info, or withholding the intriguing bits. If anomalies emerge in the data, detractors will probe the lag. The hush engenders a lose-lose bind, eroding trust in the system no matter the reality. This embodies the conundrum of conspiratorial logic. It's impervious to disproof. Proof debunking plots gets recast as complicit. Absence of proof becomes proof of effective hiding. Escaping this trap demands utter candor, dumping all material at once. Yet that carries drawbacks and proves unfeasible amid valid issues of confidentiality, safeguards, or validation. Thus, bodies find themselves cornered, unable to placate doubters without betraying core duties. As a fair conclusion, going ahead, scrutiny requires probing every quiet moment thoughtfully. Probe the reasons for lags in agencies, the reluctance to disseminate data, the spotlight on select results. While some aspects of information sharing are amplified, others get downplayed. Yet it's important to acknowledge that not all postponements stem from malice. Not every quiet period signals censorship. At times, quiet reflects prudence. Other times, it's hesitation. Occasionally, it's merely the ponderous machinery of bureaucratic processes at work. To tell these apart, one must examine trends across durations, review histories of disclosures, and assess if authorities ultimately share details or if revelations only surface via unauthorized channels and external demands. Regarding 3-atlas in particular, a prudent approach involves staying vigilant, tracking official announcements, advocating for policies that grant access to unprocessed data for outside analysts, backing efforts such as the Galileo Project to establish alternative, open monitoring systems. Insist on responsibility when holdups appear unwarranted or justifications fall short, yet also grant a measure of leeway, understanding that unclear findings truly pose tough decisions on timing and content. This overarching idea extends far past this single entity. We're stepping into an age where our tools can pick up signals we can't right away comprehend. Sudden radio pulses popped up unexpectedly in recordings, appending established models. Ripples in space-time unveiled fresh vistas on celestial occurrences we'd merely theorized. As detection expands, so will oddities, each sparking identical conflicts between openness and restraint, between conjecture and confirmation. The ways we navigate these frictions will shape the nature of our knowledge-driven society. Will we pursue candor, embracing the chaos and doubt it entails, or favor oversight, enduring the distrust and stalled advancements it breeds? No flawless solution exists. Each path carries costs, but awareness of those costs, voicing them clearly, and discussing them freely, that's vital. Amid the hush of the cosmos, the most resonant reality may already linger, awaiting our attention. True attentiveness demands more than gadgets. It calls for bravery. Bravery to absorb insights that upend our paradigms. Bravery to dwell in ambiguity instead of leaping to hasty judgments. Bravery to admit, I'm unsure, when uncertainty reigns, rather than crafting comforting fictions. And it demands confidence. Confidence in fellow seekers' efforts. Confidence that organizations, despite flaws, operate with integrity in most instances. Confidence that clarity will surface if we persist in inquiry, scrutiny, and calls for oversight. 3 Atlas will fade from view, growing dim beyond even our finest detectors' reach. But the inquiries it sparked endure. What sights are we ready to behold? What realities will we accept? How do we weigh restraint against inquisitiveness? Duty against openness? These probes lack definitive resolutions. They'll persist with each fresh find, each irregularity, each interloper from outside our system. Thus, follow governmental updates, nurture wonder, urge data accessibility, champion forthright research, yet cultivate intellectual modesty, aware of knowledge's boundaries under present tools and techniques. The cosmos owes us no simplicity in its revelations. It's immense, ancient, enigmatic, governed by magnitudes and laws that curb our claims to dominance. 3 Atlas forms a mere filament in that grand stellar weave. Whether commonplace or engineered, mundane or remarkable, it underscores our novice status in decoding this awe-inspiring realm we call home. The hush will shatter in time. It invariably does. Evidence will pile up. Analyses will refine. Further sightings will narrow options. Perhaps we'll verify it's a comet, quirky yet earthly, and shift to the subsequent enigma. Perhaps we'll uncover proof that truly tests our worldview, compelling us to broaden notions of feasibility. Regardless, the endeavor presses on. We detect, we probe, we argue, we incrementally forge comprehension. That's the essence of inquiry. Untidy and gradual and flawed, yet our premier tool for charting the uncharted. In that charting, quiet isn't the foe. Enforced quiet, intentional withholding, that's the adversary. But the quiet of deliberation, of validation, of pausing to grasp before declaring, such quiet serves a purpose. The skill lies in discerning the variance and pressing for answers when the harmful sort dominates. For 3 Atlas, that skill remains in development. We're midway through the narrative, far from closure. And the tale's resolution hinges not only on the entity's essence, but on our handling of the insights we collect. Thus, we observe and scrutinize and inquire. We ensure institutional answerability while respecting their limits. We advocate for clarity while grasping the intricacies that sometimes we must approach such discoveries with care. While embracing the potential for remarkable wonders, we insist on compelling proof. Above all, we recognize that the most profound quiet to conquer isn't scattered across the cosmos. It's inside us, the hush of unchallenged beliefs, stifled inquisitiveness, and awe eroded by doubt or indifference. The cosmos is whispering its secrets. Be it via the 3 Atlas events or countless additional clues, it's reminding us that isolation in the vastness of existence is an illusion. We belong to a tapestry infinitely more vast and mysterious than our current grasp allows. Our duty is to attune ourselves, to truly heed the signals using every instrument and insight at our disposal, and to persist in that attentiveness, even amid deafening voids or answers that appear eternally out of reach. For it is in this steadfast pursuit, this unyielding drive to probe deeper, that our truest chance emerges, to at last decipher the eternal message the universe has been eager to share.